Today's conversation explores health and well-being through a wider lens, one that brings together science, nature, and how the human body functions as an integrated whole. At source, our interest in health, wellness, and longevity begins with water and is grounded in the concept of hauora, an Indigenous Māori understanding that well-being is not singular or mechanical, but deeply interconnected across the physical, emotional, spiritual, environmental, and relational. When you start to explore health through that lens, the questions go far deeper than what we've ever traditionally thought. That curiosity is what led us to Dr. Catherine Clinton. Catherine is a researcher, clinician, and systems thinker whose work invites us to reconsider how the human body actually functions, not as isolated parts, but as an intelligent, communicative whole. She is particularly known for her work on fascia, hydration, and optimization, and for bridging rigorous science with a more expansive understanding of biology and nature. In this episode, we explore Catherine's journey, what drew her into this work, and how her research is helping to reshape conversations around healing, longevity, and what it truly means to support human health. Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk with you today.
Yeah, no, I've been looking forward to this conversation. I've been following you on Instagram. But before we get into the science, excuse my frog, I'd love to start with you. For people discovering your work for the first time, how would you describe who you are and the work you've been doing?
Absolutely. That's a great place to start. So, I'm a licensed naturopathic physician here in Oregon in the States. And when I was in naturopathic medical school, I was diagnosed with two autoimmune conditions and Lyme disease. And that's really where I got my start into this quantum biology approach to health. Before that, I was a assistant to a traditional midwife from Mexico, and she really opened up this portal into natural healing, into the elements in our world, our ecosystem, and the internal architecture of the body. But I knew, like it was like the third birth, I knew that I'm not a midwife and I want to do natural medicine in a way that allows me to close shop at night, and which a midwife can't do. And so I went to naturopathic school, but that's really the stress of that second year, the long clinic hours, the long hours in class, just was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. And I was, again, diagnosed with two autoimmune conditions. I was diagnosed with Lyme. I started having panic attacks. And it led me to an understanding that, yes, the body is chemical and mechanical, like we have all been taught, but there's something else happening too. The body is energetic. The flow of electricity, electromagnetic fields, the water within our body, the light, all of these things impact our biological function, our health, our longevity, our vitality in a measurable way. And that's really what a quantum biology approach to health looks at. It looks at light, it looks at electrical fields, fields of energy of all kinds, magnetic, scalar, the quantum field, electromagnetic fields, sound, our thoughts and emotion, and how they impact the body, the water inside of us, our mitochondria, our cell membranes, to induce measurable biological change and communication, which is really exciting. It's really an expansion of our understanding and an expansion of our toolkit of what we can use to better our health and longevity.
That's right. I mean, that's a very different way of looking at things than traditional medicine has ever talked about. In fact, I've never heard I would say it's only been in the last five years or so, and I think social media has helped that, where clinicians such as you have been able to have a voice directly with people. But what started for you, where you actually, what was the part early in your work that you went, I've actually discovered something here or learnt about something here that is really meaningful?
Well, I think that came from being sick. So, this was over 20 years ago. And at the time, mitochondria were really new and exciting. And I was researching mitochondria, trying to figure out, like, where's the key that's going to unlock uh, an end to the health I was in, the poor health I was in. And the physician that I was doing clinical rotations under, she was my physician too. And she urged me to look at psychoneuroimmunology. And that's just a big word for how our thoughts impact our body and our health. And I stumbled across two things. I stumbled across some research from Martin Picard looking at how our thoughts and emotions impact our cellular energy and our mitochondrial function. And I also came across early quantum biology research that was looking at quantum coherence. It was looking at how a photon of light reaches the photoreactive center for photosynthesis to occur. And all these incredible things they noticed: superposition, where the light can take multiple paths. They saw tunneling, where it can go through an obstacle rather than around it. All these really exciting things. But the thing that was really exciting to me was the idea of coherence, how all the proteins in this bacterium vibrated together to keep that light on its fastest path, which to me implied this intelligence,
Mm.
this connection between the macro ecosystem that we live in and the micro ecosystem and architecture of a microscopic bacterium, that it's all connected, that we're embedded in this energetic fabric. And that's really what opened the door to me to look into quantum biology and what this meant. And a lot of the early research when I was doing this was looking at all these things in living systems to see how they could be applied for quantum computing. So a lot of it was translating, like, well, this is happening in a living system, and they're excited about it for a computer, but I'm excited about what that means in a living system like our body.
Mm. I I actually was, as we were talking, I thought maybe we should talk about the mitochondria because that comes up a lot. And I do wonder if people really understand what it is and why it's important and how what it actually does. Do you want to actually just go into that, just to help people along on our journey?
Yes, I love the mitochondria.
Mhm.
So they are inside of our cells. Almost all of our cells have mitochondria in them. And,
Mhm.
back to primary school where you get that coloring sheet of the cell, the mitochondria are those jelly bean shape organelles within the cell. And they create ATP, or our cellular energy. And ATP does other things, but it also is the energy currency of the body. And researchers have really found this association between a dip in mitochondrial function and almost every modern disease out there, meaning that if our mitochondria aren't healthy, if they aren't able to produce energy, then the body suffers. And mitochondria are just amazing. Yes, they produce cellular energy and ATP. They also produce heat. They produce infrared energy. They produce
Mm.
water. They produce light. Every time they make a molecule of ATP, they produce something called biophotons, this living light that's in our body, and I think is part of a light communication system in the body. It's just an incredible insight to how sophisticated our bodies really are, because these mitochondria, yes, they produce cellular energy. I mean, the saying is they are the powerhouses of the cell. And yes, they are, but they also are regulating our immune system. They help regulate our hormones, our metabolism. They have an intimate role in inflammation. They're just really so much more than the cellular energy producers of the body. But that in and of itself is a huge insight to what our mitochondria do. They're sensitive to light in our environment. They're sensitive to sound. They're sensitive to our thoughts and emotions. 2 years ago, I founded the Quantum Biology Health Institute, and we just finished a research study with participants around the world, and they were doing a 42-day heart coherence exercise. So they spent 5 minutes focusing on their heart, focusing on heart coherent emotions, and we tested their mitochondrial function before and after. And the results are coming in, but we're starting to see really clear patterns of improvement in cellular energy, in mitochondrial function, just by getting coherent for 5 minutes a day. So our mitochondria are also very sensitive to our internal dialogue, our thoughts and emotions.
Mm. So for me, when I hear this, I just kind of go, this is why things like ancient practices that didn't have rigorous science around it, but they were, brought in by indigenous groups of people. Things like meditation, that was they didn't know why it helped you, but they knew it did, or mantras, or
Yeah.
humming, and all these different practices that were considered unscientific. Now we're starting to understand actually what they did do for our body, and why when you feel good with them, there's a reason. I had an autoimmune disease as well. I guess when you say you've got an autoimmune disease, you're never healed. Like traditionally in the scientific terms, it's for life. But I consider myself in remission for it's been over a decade now, and the fact that I've been on this water is I don't think it's a coincidence for the same amount of time. But I was just thinking about how you talked about the mitochondria. And when I was really unwell, as I'm sure some people here who might be listening to us or know of friends and family, what you do notice when you're super unwell with a chronic disease is the tiredness. I would liken it to being sucked down a drain pipe. You'd start your day, you'd wake up tired actually, and then you'd start your day and you're like, I'm doing well. Then all of a sudden you just hit this time frame, and it's not like, oh, I've had a big day, I need a little nap. It is, I am being sucked down a drain pipe, and if I don't lay down now, I will pass out. And then you'll be asleep for anywhere between 1 to 3 hours for a nap in the day. And I used to think that that was my organ under pressure, the one that was affected. But now that I understand mitochondria function and ATP and the powerhouse, we've learned that if the mitochondria is not functioning, it can't produce your energy. And then all this other coherence about light passing and things like that. So I just love that description. It was really helpful for me to pull it all together. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we look at the definition of autoimmune, like if we were to search it on the internet right now, it's your body attacking itself. And that right there is a powerful medicine against health, right? To
Yes.
think that your body isn't safe, that it's
Mm.
attacking you. But what we're seeing from the new research out about bioelectricity, the body as an electrical being, we're
Mhm.
seeing that a decrease in negative electrical charge. And maybe we'll talk about the water that lines our cells and how it has a negative electrical charge. But our cells operate on a negative electrical charge. They have a unique electrical signature. And when it decreases, when it loses charge, it causes a whole slew of issues. We see a derangement in the communication between cells. We see these cells lose their ability to function properly. And when we're talking about immune cells, we see that the communication starts to get skewed to an autoimmune reaction, so that they're constantly sending signals of hypervigilance because there is a loss of electrical charge. So, on the other hand, rather than our body attacking ourselves, we could say an autoimmune condition could be started by the loss of electrical charge in the body. I think, in fact, we could say that about many things. We could say pain, we could say inflammation, we could say symptoms really can be associated with a loss in that negative electrical charge being so important to how the body functions and maintains communication and health in the body.
It's just so helpful, because when I was diagnosed, I think it was like 19 years ago, yes, it was described as your body is attacking itself and we don't know why. And now, as we learn more about the science that your your work is about, it just helped sink everything in for me. I do want to talk. There was a reason why something that you posted a few days ago, or maybe a few days ago, that really made me want to reach out to you, because it helped make me understand this gut brain axis that we know about. But before we get into that, I thought I'd just sort of explain to people um, the properties of this particular water that we are the kaitiaki, or the guardians of, so that it helps people link what we're talking about this electrical charge and this energy. So what we've learned, this water holds a naturally negative charge of minus 175 ORP and an exclusion zone. And when I try to explain to people, this is what it is, I rather would like to jump into, but why is that important? And so I simply say, unlike other water, which is positively charged or neutrally charged, this water is most like the water within the mitochondria of our cells, which is negatively charged. And so the theory behind this work, so we haven't been able to unlock research money into this particular water, about how this particular water does affect people, but we are getting anecdotal stories, like hundreds of them. So I can only talk about the scientific theory about negatively charged water, or other people call it structured water, is that this water is drunk and it goes into your bloodstream very quickly, within minutes, and it then has the ability to go into your bloodstream and sit right next to the mitochondria. And so with the negative charge of our water, and then sitting up against a hydrophilic surface, which is the mitochondria, there's the exclusion zone acts like a battery and helps pass over that negative charge to help recharge the water within the cells of your mitochondria. That's the theory. But then we are seeing these anecdotal stories which back up that theory, and it seems to be we're getting these profound healing stories, especially with people who are on their wellness longevity journey, but also autoimmune diseases and things. But there's two things that I have picked up on the work that you're doing. The first is that you talk about structured water within the body that we make ourselves, and I'd like to investigate that further, so you can help people understand not only can you bring in this type of water to really help you, but how else can you support yourself? And then I heard you talking about how the brain functions and the cerebral spinal fluid that flows. And everything sort of fell into place with me when the first feedback I get from our customers is, first they get hugely enhanced energy and then deep sleep, but then any gut issues start healing very, very fast, which then flips to, oh, I've overcome all my anxiety issues. My depression has gone. They can handle stress more. So there is a brain thing that is going on for them, that's what I wanted to explore with you, because I'm yeah, I'd like to learn more about what you understand about what could be going on for people.
Yes. Well, the mitochondria, like you mentioned, do produce water, right? So inside the mitochondria, if we picture this jelly bean, which isn't really the way they look, when we have a healthy mitochondria, it kind of looks like a star. It spreads out, it connects to other mitochondria, other things in the cell. But for the sake of simplicity, we'll think of it as that jelly bean. It has that outer membrane, and then it has an inner membrane inside of the mitochondria. And in that inner membrane, there's the electron transport chain, where electrons quantum tunnel down this chain of protein complexes. And the first four complexes were creatively named complex 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the fifth complex is ATP synthase. And it kind of looks like the letter T. And the top spins and it creates infrared energy and a pull where it pulls a proton down from the space in between the outer and the inner membrane, pulls it down into the matrix to create ATP. The protein complex right next to it, right before that, complex 4, creates water. And the protein complex relationship between these two, you've got the water being made right next to ATP synthase, which is creating infrared energy. And like we know from Professor Pollack's work out of the University of Washington, it's infrared energy that builds this easy liquid crystal water that has that negative electrical charge, that's able to capture and store and emit frequency information. And so this special water is being produced in our mitochondria when our mitochondria are healthy and signaling appropriately and creating cellular energy. So by tending to our mitochondria, we're actually tending to our cellular hydration as well. And what does tending to our mitochondria look like? It looks like going outside. Anytime the sun is up, we are enveloped in a sea of infrared energy. It's the largest source of infrared energy. I'm here in the Pacific Northwest and I'm looking outside my window right now. It's just gray and cloudy. We can tell the sun is up, but I can't tell where it is because it's so dark. But even dark meaning cloudy, but even on a day like today, if I were to go outside, there's an abundance of infrared energy. And that infrared energy is so supportive of our mitochondrial function. It really allows that electron transport chain to work very efficiently and create ATP easier. And so anytime we go outside, that's a beautiful way to support our mitochondria. There's research out there proposing that grounding is another beautiful way where we can support our mitochondria. And I think we touched a little bit on how our thoughts and emotions and our state of coherence and mindfulness can also really help support our mitochondrial function. And so these simple steps of going outside, touching the earth, touching a tree, slowing our breath, becoming a little more coherent, focused on our heart and emotions like love or gratitude, they have a profound impact on the mitochondria and their ability to create energy. It's really amazing to see how simple yet how powerful our relationship with nature really is.
I would say that we could draw a correlation between the data of chronic illness, autoimmune disease, and cancer in line with our modern urban societies building. You know, our distance from nature, wearing shoes more, not going, being able to swim more, get connected with nature, sitting and listening to birds and the trees, and So my culture is indigenous. So I am Māori by ethnicity, and I know in our family only recently they have started, and I've talked to other indigenous Pacific Island people within our community as well, and I've said, I've had my family turn around and say, "Oh, our family has cancer. We're prone to cancer," and I said that is incorrect. I have only noticed that in the last 20 years, we have had a lot of cancer emerge within our family. Prior to that, there was none. And so, we didn't wear shoes. New Zealand was very particularly known for not wearing shoes. We wouldn't even wear them to the supermarket. Certainly, my children wouldn't wear them to school. And we'd be in the ocean, and it was very much a connected society where you got, as you say, there's more than just the physical aspects. There's the spiritual, emotional, and relationship aspects about how you connect to each other, how you talk well to each other. And so I feel like this distance that we've got from nature and from each other, from this digital world, has built this chronic disease, rise in our society. Mm.
I agree. I mean, it's really become a society of disconnection where everything we're talking about to build health is a relationship, right? A relationship with the earth, a relationship with the rising and setting of the sun, a relationship with our own internal dialogue and our thoughts and emotions. All of these things have a profound impact. Our relationship with our children. And how often do you go out to a restaurant and see everybody on their own device, not
Mm.
even talking and enjoying a meal anymore? Those relationships are suffering. And we can talk about how the modern light is mostly blue light, and that affects mitochondrial health and that affects water production in the cell. But we can also just talk about how this is all a relationship. And and I think that as much as we need that relationship with nature, it also wants that relationship with us. So boiling it down to this sort of extraction mindset where we go outside to get this benefit, or we have a relationship to get this benefit, that really detracts from this reciprocity that we see in nature, where yes, nature is so nurturing, but in that relationship is a responsibility for us to take care of nature, to cultivate this nurturing relationship with the world around us as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I could dive deep into those symbiotic relationships we see nature having with each other, because I just love understanding those relationships between trees and birds and insects and things. But we have forgotten that we are part of nature. We kind of go, oh, that's nature, and human beings are over here, nothing to do with it. And I think that's where we've lost our way. We actually need to nurture that symbiotic relationship in order to protect our own health and our own longevity. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more. The cerebral fluid that you were talking about recently, I was really interested in that, and that gut brain access. Do you want to talk about that? Because that was another thing that just went, wow, that's amazing. That's really cool. I love learning from you. So thank you for all your knowledge.
Oh, I love the interconnection of it all. It's so beautiful to see how interconnected it is. The gut microbiome, the cells there lining the gut, the mitochondria that are rich in that
Mm.
tissue, they are so intimately connected to the nervous system, to our neurological health, our brain function. But when we look at the cerebral spinal fluid, It's incredible. And I must say that Dr. Mauro Zapatera is an incredible pioneer in this research. And I think the post that you mentioned on Instagram, it's actually, he sent me his latest research article. And I said, okay, I'm going to do a post on it. And so that's where that post came from. And I think it's a growing awareness in many of us in medicine and in science of this interconnection that happens. So cerebral spinal fluid is the fluid that, in medical school, I learned that this is what the brain bathes in. It gives the brain buoyancy and the spinal cord buoyancy so we don't get injured as easily. But it does so much more than that, right? It is this internal river in the
Mm,
body. And the cells that line the spinal canal, where the spinal cord and this cerebral spinal fluid flows, they are sensitive to chemicals, right? Because there are different chemicals and neurotransmitters in spinal fluid, but they are also sensitive to light. They're sensitive to the motion and flow of the cerebral spinal fluid. And this explanation that it's just there for buoyancy and protection is hard to understand because the cerebral spinal fluid extends inches after the end of the spinal cord. It extends all the way down into the sacrum. And when we inhale and exhale, it pushes the movement of the cerebral spinal fluid up into the brain, into the third ventricle, where many cultures talk about that third eye. And our pineal gland is bathed in this cerebral spinal fluid that can really act as this bridge. I mean, this easy liquid crystalline water that I'm sure your audience is familiar with, but as this water comes up to a surface, like the brain, like the nerves in the spinal cord, it takes on a different structure. And that structure is negatively charged. It pushes out a hydrogen, creating that water battery, but it's also this antenna.
mm,
It can capture, it can store, and it can emit frequency information. And what do I mean by frequency information? I mean information that's held in a wave. So that can be an electrical field, that can be sound, that can be a thought, an emotion. All of those things
mm,
are held in a wave and they can be captured by this organized liquid crystalline water in our cerebral spinal fluid. And our cerebral spinal fluid is so beautiful when we look at the etiology of it. When we are just a couple cells, a couple layer of cells thick in the womb as we're developing as a human, those cells dip down to create the spinal canal where the spinal cord and the brain start to develop. But that first cerebral spinal fluid is amniotic fluid.
mm,
It's our mother's amniotic fluid that acts as a connection to our mother, to our grandmother, to this vast maternal lineage of wisdom and knowledge. And through the idea of homeopathy, there's still this homeopathic imprint of our mother's amniotic fluid running through this central river in the body. And, we can talk about fascia and how extracellular matrix proteins are found in the cerebral spinal fluid. And those proteins are semiconductive. They can hold and transfer an electrical current, and they're piezoelectric. They can induce and then generate an electrical charge. So you have this incredible understanding that goes way beyond buoyancy and protection of this vital internal river of fluid that flows from our sacrum all the way up to our third ventricle in our brain. It bathes the brain. It holds vital neurotransmitters and hormones like melatonin. There's been DMT, which is associated with sort of expanded states of consciousness detected in the cerebral spinal fluid. Just absolutely incredible to think that the flow of this fluid holds information. The
Mhm.
proteins hold information in the fluid. The chemicals, of course, hold information. And it goes from sacrum to the third ventricle, to the
Mhm.
pineal gland that releases melatonin, releases DMT, houses these piezoelectric crystals in
Mm.
them. All of these things acting as antenna
Mm.
for all of this unseen information in our environment. It's a really phenomenal expansion of the cerebral spinal fluid as simply buoyancy and protection for the central nervous system.
It's just so beautiful, and I hope people are really helping to connect the dots here on what you're actually saying. I know that I have our customers will come to us and say things like, um, my anxiety is lifted, my depression, I my intuition has opened up. And at first, when I first started hearing people say this, I thought it was, I'm going to just say it, I thought it was very far fetched that water could do something like that. But then it became consistent, very, very, very consistent, and the same, and different types of words to say the same things. And then when I hear you talk about it in a very structured, scientific way about how this very special water, which yes, our water, source water, is very much like this water, but how you can really focus on the health of your mitochondria to produce this type of water that goes up and down your spinal fluid, it really can help change your emotional state and how your brain is functioning and how your hormones are firing. And I understand that medication is sometimes needed. I don't disregard that. Sometimes, it can help you get over humps. But if we consider, if I'm going to live for the next 40, 50 years, how do I actually build upon my health so I no longer have to rely on a quick fix, which medication should be about? It is about, how do I actually build the health of my mitochondria so that I can fire up all these great hormones and have my fluid functioning and carrying this electricity and information and signaling that it's supposed to. For me, that's what it says. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, I would agree. And this is emerging research. So we're
Mm.
just at the tip of the iceberg here. There's
Mm.
so much more that we would like to know and need to know. But it's quite clear that the cerebral spinal fluid is special in its ability to transmit information and its ability to hold information. And the cells lining this canal also are very special in their ability to detect all of these different things. And science is moving so fast these days. I think that if we were to meet in a few years and have this conversation, we'd have a much deeper understanding of what's happening, which is also really exciting.
And that is the point of science, isn't it? It is the recognition that we actually don't know everything. We are supposed to be curious. We are supposed to keep asking the questions. And even though people are met with skepticism and healthy skepticism, we shouldn't always just, take everything on face value, but we should constantly be exploring and asking questions. And I think this is what our work with source water has taught us, that people have information to share, and instead of being like, oh, that's not true, it is much more about, what are they trying to say to me, and what are they trying to tell me, and is there something more I can learn here? That's certainly the attitude that we've started to take, because the science is incredible and emerging very, very quickly.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we've talked before about you reaching out and working with Pollock, Professor Pollock, and um, it's just so exciting to see the possibilities from something that is traditionally overlooked in science, right? Water is just a background substance that we don't take into account, and we're starting to understand that it's much more than that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that we need to wrap up our conversation, but I do want to talk to people about your book that you recently published, because if everybody's enjoyed the conversation and they want to understand this more and understand not only the science but how it might be applied to them, can you just tell us a little bit about your book and then where people can get that? Because I'd love to see people learning more on this subject.
Absolutely. The book goes into depth in this subject, right? The water, light, all of these things, the electrical capacity of the body, and ancient traditions and how they viewed all this. And people can find it at pretty much every major book retailer out there. If you go to Dr. Catherine Clinton, that's me, drcatherineclinton.com/optimize. That's the name of the book, Optimize with a Z. Then you'll see all the different retailers that carry it, as well as a place to input your information to get some bonuses like an 85-page workbook to help bring the book to life, to help turn it into a living experience, some videos and just some bonus material to go along as a thank you for ordering the book.
Wonderful. And I think people need to remember that these retailers will offer to send it out and they can order it online. So if you're not in the United States, you can just order it through those retailers and they'll post it out to you. So that's an
Yeah,
easy way. I already know of some of our customers who have your books, so they're very excited.
that's wonderful.
Anyway, thank you so much for your time today, Catherine. It's wonderful to actually get to talk to you for, and to connect. I know we've been connecting for a couple of years now online. So I really appreciate this conversation and I look forward to, seeing you again and maybe we can do something else again in the future.
I would love that. I would love that. It's been wonderful talking with you, and I look forward to the next time.